Welcome back to the 36th online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peacepoint, with myself, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhamma International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Last time you saw me, we looked at pursuing perfections. And with the Dhamma talk today, we will complete our exploration of living Buddhism with the topic of the 3 refuges of Buddhism. So today's session will run to about an hour and 10 minutes with 25 minutes on the 3 levels of description for the Buddhist refuges, 20 minutes of meditation, then finishing up with 25 minutes on the meaning of taking refuge and an overview of the scriptures, before finishing up with news updates. As usual, in case anyone out there is actually listening, this session, I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a chance to answer those questions next time round. This session of the Living Buddhism series will be the last one, and in it we will try to bring together everything from the last 10 sessions by returning to the concept of the Triple Gem and its different levels of meaning. Many textbooks explaining the principles of Buddhism start with taking refuge in the Triple Gem, as if this step towards becoming a Buddhist were self-evident. In these sessions too, although I consider taking refuge to also be very important, I have been saving the subject till last to show how it links with all the other aspects of living Buddhism that I've already described. Taking refuge means going to something that gives shelter from adversity. The hospital would be considered a refuge in the time of sickness. A soup kitchen would be considered a refuge for the hungry. Refuge in a religious sense is generally an unknown factor, and the differences in the nature of these unknown factors are what distinguish one religion from another. In Buddhism, the Triple Gem is meant to be a refuge for those adrift in the cycle of rebirth, and the associated perils of birth, old age, sickness, and death. The word refuge means something to which you can go when you're in trouble, something which you can rely upon when you are unable to cope for yourself. Is Buddhism, by advocating refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, just as guilty as other religions of encouraging people to believe in an unknown factor? To answer this question, it is necessary to define the meaning of the Triple Gem on 3 levels of description. The true refuges which Buddhists suppose to be permanent and stable, which can bring happiness instead of suffering, are known as the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. We already know that the Buddha is nothing more than a man. People of certain religious persuasions may have some problem with believing in a mere person. They protest, well, how can you elevate someone who's a mere mortal, someone who's a mere human being, to such an elevated plane that they could be the refuge to you? In answer to this objection, Buddhists don't respect the Buddha simply as a man, but rather as an example of human potential, because the fact that he was a mere human being conveys a very important message to us, that if he can break free from suffering, then so can we, because we are merely a human being too. Buddhism had its origin at a certain time and a certain place in history, namely in India 2,519 years ago. Therefore, when some people take refuge in the Buddha, they mean the historical personage of the founder of Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama, who became enlightened under a Bodhi tree. When they take refuge in the Dharma, they mean the discourses that the Buddha was able to teach as the result of his enlightenment, and which were later recorded in the Buddhist scriptures. When they take refuge in the Sangha, they mean the historical community of monks contemporary to the Buddha, who became enlightened as a result of his teaching. Those people who take such a description of the Triple Gem as their main guideline in taking refuge usually consider Buddhism as a religion. They rely on faith in historical personages to bring them comfort and overcome their fears. Their faith is placed outside of themselves, and in this day and age, their refuge is no more known than any deified religion. It is Buddhism as a religion which is often based on belief in something unseen and often no more than adherence to scriptural remnants. Such traditional Buddhists may be very interested in Buddhist relics and making pilgrimages to the 4 Buddhist holy sites in India. So on this level, then the Triple Gem can be a refuge to us, but it's mostly based in our historical understanding of the Buddha. If skeptics were to call into question whether the Buddha really existed, or whether the scriptures are fake, then there's a chance that such Buddhists who have taken refuge on the historical level may suffer a crisis of faith. And indeed, there are some academics, such as David Drews, who try to throw doubt on the existence of the Buddha. It would be a tactic which would undermine the faith of some traditional Buddhists if they took refuge only in the Triple Gem on this historical level. Less traditional Buddhists look beyond the historical origins of contemporary Buddhism to see that the most recent Buddha was not unique, but that there have been Buddhas all down the ages, and there will inevitably be more in the future, such as Maitreya, the future Buddha revered highly in the Mahayana tradition. Seeing the Triple Gem in such a way is to see Buddhism more as a philosophy of human development. There is a message which comes from Buddhism, especially from Mahayana Buddhism, where they talk more about Buddhism in spirit rather than Buddhism to the letter of the scriptures, which means to see the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha not as historical phenomena, or to connect the Buddha with just one particular individual, who was the most recent person to attain Buddhahood, but that in accordance with the teachings in the Buddhist scriptures, that there have been more Buddhas enlightened in the past than the number of grains of sand in all the 4 great oceans. So the number of Buddhas in the past would be considered countless. This introduces us to the idea that being Buddha, or being an enlightened one, is not to do with being a particular person anymore, but is more to do with the qualities of that person, the qualities of enlightenment, the quality of freedom from defilements, the quality of joy and happiness, which characterize any person who is able to attain Buddhahood. Similarly, there will be more Buddhas in the future, and we too may be Buddhas in the future. In fact, it should just be a question of time. If we were more diligent in our meditation, maybe we would already be Buddhas by now. But unfortunately, we're not so adept in meditation, so it's still a work in progress. Some people have the intention to be a Buddha in the future, so that's a good start. Some people don't even have that intention yet. But according to the grand view of the cosmos, it is to be expected that someday everyone must go on to enlightenment. Some people may be doing it rather slowly. Some people may not even realize it yet. But on the global level of description, there is the idea that all of us have the potential for Buddhahood, and we are working on it. So on this level of description, the idea of a refuge becomes more abstract. It becomes something which is an ideal which we are working upon. We are trying to transform ourselves so that we can become part of that ideal too. In this sense, the Dharma of the Buddha also becomes a quality. It is anything which Buddhas have taught in the past, which would lead the listener in the direction of enlightenment. This is the Dharma on the global level. It's not just something which starts and ends with a particular Buddha, but it's something where each new Buddha who comes into the world will reveal again will recover, a timeless truth which is already there but needs for a Buddha to be astute enough to point it out for other people. Because suffering is always there, but most of us are too oblivious to notice it or to learn from it. It's only a Buddha who has the penetrative knowledge to see deeply enough to learn something from these phenomena which are part of our life. The Sangha refuge on this level of description would be any community of monks or community of those who practice in a continuous and an earnest way. And that would be all down the ages, not just the most recent set of disciples of the Buddha. Sometimes there's a question whether the Sangha just refers to monks or not. In the Thai context, generally the term Sangha is associated exclusively with monks, and they have a more inclusive term for monks, nuns, and lay practitioners, which is Buddha Bodhisat or Buddha Bodhisarda. Outside of Thailand, though, the word Sangha is used more loosely to mean community, so that it can include all people who practice the Dharma in earnest. Usually it means the ones who have become enlightened as a result of their practice, but it can mean also those who are still practicing for enlightenment too. So whether it's laymen, laywomen, nuns, novices, or monks, then all are Sangha on this level of description. On a possible third level of description, the Triple Gem is described as the Buddha Gem, or Buddha Ratana, Dhamma Gem, and Sangha Gem, not external to each Buddhist, but as something which is already within a person, that needs to be attained through the practice of meditation. Attainment of the Triple Gem within aligns with what is meant by taking refuge in the Triple Gem on this experiential level of meaning, where the Triple Gem becomes not merely concepts or ideals, but it becomes something that is tangible and even visible to those who meditate sufficiently deeply to reach the threshold of attainment. In this case, the Buddha Gem would be the body of enlightenment inside oneself, the inner body of enlightenment which one can attain when one's mind becomes pure enough to see that inside oneself. In the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, sometimes they talk about it as the seed of enlightenment inside oneself, which is latent in every human being. This seed of enlightenment is to be found latent wherever people are to be found. It is a question of bringing it forth so that it is manifest in one's life. Otherwise, it's like an underground well full of pure water, but for as long as no one can drill down deep enough to reach the water, then it's no use to anyone. We may have the body of the Buddha, the body of enlightenment inside us too, but until we meditate deeply enough to attain it, then it's also no use to us. But if we can attain it, then we can bring forth the wisdom contained in that body. The Dhamma Gem on this level is that wisdom within the body of enlightenment of the Buddha, which is like a sphere at the center of the body of enlightenment. Within that sphere is all the knowledge, not just a handful of leaves that the Buddha referred to in the Simsapa Sutta of the Samyutta Nikaya as knowledge essential for enlightenment, but even the Dharma that he did not reveal, which means knowledge that is good to know, but not essential for enlightenment, and equivalent to all the leaves on all the trees in the forest. So if you meditate deeply enough to that point, then in theory you could rewrite the Buddhist scriptures from scratch, because they derive from the enlightenment experience or the wisdom of the Dhammakaya of the person who attains them. The Sangha Gem on this level is located within the center of that Dharma sphere, where if you go further in your meditation, then you find yet more Buddha images which help to nurture and maintain the intactness of that Dharma teaching at the center. When we're trying to meditate, in fact, we are reaching towards this body of enlightenment inside ourselves, because if we can reach it, then the body of enlightenment is something we can use as a tool to examine the nature of reality in a way which is not biased or limited by our physical frailties, but which can see beyond these limitations. Something which is like a platform, which is so objective that it's not shaken even by looking at things from one lifetime to another, or from one realm of existence to another. So if we're talking about the Triple Gem on this experiential level, it no longer means something intellectual or a mere rite of passage, but it means attaining the stages of enlightenment in oneself. In the Pali language, taking refuge in the Buddha is described as Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, literally, I go to the Buddha for refuge. So it's as if there is some movement toward whatever is the nature of Buddhahood. Our main teacher in Thailand, the Venerable Dhammachayo, says that this movement means that our awareness moves inwards on the central axis until we can attain Buddhahood inside ourselves. This is what is really meant by going for refuge. We don't have to go anywhere physically, we don't have to go to the temple, we don't have to go to the holy sites of India, but we project our awareness through the inner axis in order to attain the Buddha inside ourselves, which means the Buddha Ratana, which is like the body of enlightenment. It's like a Buddha carved of living crystal inside ourselves. If we attain this inner body, then we attain to a certain degree some part of the enlightenment of the Buddha. So this third way of describing the Triple Gem, or what we mean by taking refuge in the Triple Gem, which is something very relevant to us. It is a timeless experience because it doesn't go out of date when the historical Buddha leaves this earth. It is also something which is available to all, not just to ordained monks, but even novices, even lay people. All human beings alike have the chance to become unified with or take refuge in the Triple Gem directly by their personal experience on this level of description. So this is the ultimate level of definition of the Triple Gem, which we are very interested in, especially when we're putting so much effort into our meditation practice. In some cases, it can even allow lay people to meditate better than some monks, to the point that, ironically, they may have a better understanding of what it is to be a monk than the monks themselves, because they have that knowledge intuitively from the inside. If you ask why some people, like the founder of our temple in Thailand, Kun Yai, could have such a great knowledge of the scriptures and of Buddhist teachings, even though she was illiterate, then this is the answer, because she had contact the whole of the time with the Triple Gem within herself, and this gave her the answers to the questions which she was searching for. It was like she had a permanent, hardwired connection with the Triple Gem inside herself, the same body of knowledge which also the Buddha drew upon to teach his disciples and to establish the Buddhist religion. Seeing Buddhism in this way, Buddhism becomes more of a lifestyle because it provides a reason and a goal for practicing Buddhism in order to attain the Triple Gem within. This level of description is yet more universal even than the concept of the Triple Gem on the global level, because it belongs to everybody. If you ask about what is our real aim in practicing Buddhism, then it ought to be for us to attain this Triple Gem on the level of inner experience, so that we can truly be our own refuge, because it's something where, even though our body may break down and die at the end of our life, but it's still available to us as a sort of lifeboat, which will either take us to a better life or be the means by which we can break free of the cycle of existence completely. In accordance with this level of meaning, it is likely that in the beginning, Buddhism was nothing more than the teaching of meditation and related culture. To illustrate the difference between the different levels of description of the Triple Gem, there's a scriptural story in the Theragatha, of one of the Buddha's disciples, a monk called Vakkali, who was very enamored by the Buddha's physical appearance, because the Buddha himself was very beautiful to the eye. He had a perfectly proportioned body, according to what is known as the 32 signs of a great man. This disciple, called Vakkali, used to follow the Buddha everywhere and spy on him, because it gave him great pleasure to see the Buddha. He felt great faith every time he got a glimpse of the Buddha. Eventually, the Buddha decided to teach him a lesson by banishing him to a place where he could no longer spy on the Buddha. Vakkali experienced so much sorrow by the fact he couldn't see the Buddha anymore that he wanted to commit suicide. So he took himself to the edge of a cliff and was about to jump to his death, when the Buddha emanated a vision of himself to appear in front of Vakkali, teaching him with the famous words in Pali, Yoko Vakkali Dhammang Pasati, So Mang Pasati. In translation, this means, he who sees Dhamma, Vakkali, sees me. He who sees me sees Dharma. Truly seeing Dharma, one sees me. Seeing me, one sees Dharma. The implication is that meeting up with the historical Buddha in all his glory, with all the 32 signs of the great man, was not seeing the Dharma, but the real Buddha must have been something deeper than that. So the real Buddha was not his physical body, but something deeper, which is the body of enlightenment. In other words, whoever sees the body of enlightenment sees the Dharma. Whoever sees the Dharma sees that body of enlightenment. So the difference between Siddhartha the prince and Gautama the Buddha is the fact that the Buddha had attained something additional. The thing which he had attained allowed him to understand the nature of reality in its entirety. So when we see the Buddha refuge in this way, not just on the surface anymore, but at the very essence of what it was to become a Buddha, then we realize that this experience is not restricted just to the Buddha alone. But again, like the concept of enlightenment, this is something which is open to every person to attain. So now, with all this talk of attaining bodies of enlightenment, let's take a break halfway for some meditation, which today is entitled The Space Between the Thoughts. So at this time, we settle ourselves down for 20 minutes of meditation. If you'd like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now, as you listen to my guidance. So I would like to invite you to find a comfortable position for yourself in meditation. If you like to close your eyes very gently, just settling in with your back and spine in an upright, although relaxed posture. And withdrawing your attention from thinking, begin by taking 3 slow, deep breaths. Inhaling fully and exhaling slowly. Settling into your breath and body in the most natural possible way. Just checking to see how you feel right now in this moment. Just feeling sensations in your body. Just creating a space for those sensations to arise and letting them be. And gently bringing your attention to the very top of your head. Scanning your scalp for sensations. As you move your awareness down through your face, relaxing your eyes and your eyelids, loosening up your jaw and relaxing your lips, Imagine your sense of relaxation flowing down through your neck and around your shoulders. Softly and slowly moving that sense of relaxation down through your upper arms, around your elbows, down through your lower arms, and around your wrists. Allowing that sense of relaxation to flow through the palms of your hands, all the way through your fingers to the very tips of your fingers, relaxed. And then softly shifting your attention into your abdomen and your stomach, allowing your attention to move into your chest, and that sense of relaxation as you can feel your lungs expanding and contracting as you breathe naturally and easily. And allowing the sense of relaxation from your shoulders to spread down through your upper back, through your spine, down through your lower back, imagining a feeling of relaxation flowing down through your upper legs and relaxing your knees softly. Moving your attention down through your lower legs and around your ankles. Relaxing from your heels through the soles of your feet, all the way to the tips of your toes. So you relax your feeling throughout the entire sitting position and for your entire body. And now imagine that you're sitting in your favorite place in nature, and there's no one around you. Just sitting in this beautiful place where you feel very safe and secure. You can imagine that it's a beautiful day outside. The sky is clear and vast and a beautiful blue color. And you can feel the warmth of the sun on your face and on your body. And it feels good. You can feel a gentle breeze brushing softly against your face and your body, leaving you with a sense of contentment and ease. Setting aside any thoughts that you might be having of the past or the future, and instead cherishing these precious moments that we have for meditation. And create a feeling of happiness and spaciousness in your mind. Now envision the inside of your body to be completely empty, void of any muscle, tissue, or organs. And imagine joy and happiness floating around in this empty space. Very gently and very softly, bring your attention to the center of your body, at a point located 2 fingers width above the level of your navel. If you're not sure where the center of your body is, anywhere in the general area of the stomach will do. You can envision a bright object such as a sun, a moon, or a star at the center of yourself or at the center of gravity of your body. And in this meditation tradition, often the meditation object at the point of focus is characterized as a crystal ball. The crystal ball in the mind is a symbol of the spaciousness that we can access. But however you decide to anchor your awareness, even if it's nothing more than a feeling that you have, that there's an object present at the center of yourself, keep your attention steady and evenly at that point. Remain in touch with that inner object by means of the good feeling which you have from your meditation. Feel the presence of the object at your center. If you find thoughts arising, but they won't go away when you ignore them, you can try reciting to yourself the mantra, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. Imagine hearing the sound of the mantra resonating from the center of your body, while allowing your mind to settle naturally and peacefully at the same point. In the meantime, if your mind wanders, then you just bring it back. If the inner object disappears, you can think of a new one. And if the object transforms, then we just follow it in its new form. As we meditate more, we start to become more familiar with the experience of the space between the thoughts. To access the space between where one thought ends and another one begins, where we're able to take a step back from thinking so that we're not so caught up in our thoughts. And we can start to gain access to that spaciousness in our mind. When we do experience that clarity of mind, that resilience, that stability, we automatically notice how our stresses melt away. We experience actually dwelling in this stillness, or yet deeper levels of inner peace. In the meantime, we have to work with the wandering mind and thoughts arising. We need to learn to watch these mental phenomena, treating them as nothing more than the manifestation of impermanence in our mind. We observe how thoughts and emotions arise and pass away naturally, without getting caught up in these, treating them as nothing more than clouds or turbulence passing through a blue sky that is essentially clear. And by identifying with the stillness that is the backdrop, we learn to access something deeper. That is the nature of deep peace, intuition, and wisdom. And when we get our first glimpse of it, it will further motivate us to continue to develop these skills. Even if we get an overwhelming feeling of restlessness, we can learn to watch that restlessness and to disassociate from it, allowing us to reconnect with the spaciousness in our mind. Our mind will become unhooked from the restlessness and angst, allowing us to settle the mind more deeply still. So we continue in this way for a few more moments in silence until we come to time for a few moments of loving-kindness meditation together. At this point, we start with our practice of loving-kindness meditation, where we practice cultivating and generating feelings of loving-kindness for ourselves and all other beings in the world. And it may help to start with the image of a dear friend or a family member who we care deeply about. It could even be a pet that you care about. And imagine that that person or living being is right in front of you. And connect with the feelings of loving kindness that you have for them, with the feeling of gratitude that they're in your life. And imagine those feelings growing and expanding outward from the center of your body. Imagine this feeling of loving kindness touching every single cell in your body, from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes, radiating from the center. And in this way, we start by extending loving kindness toward ourselves first of all, with the wish that may I be happy, may I be healthy in body and mind, may I face my difficulties with good grace and serenity, may I take care of myself in happiness. And take note of these feelings of compassion, care and kindness, tenderness and openness. Sending these feelings to yourself. And from there we imagine these feelings growing and radiating outward from the center of our body to eventually cover our entire body, like a perfect protective bubble. We now imagine sending these feelings further outward from our body to actually touch other people who you care deeply about. Imagining them being uplifted in body, mind, and spirit as they feel the loving kindness, the care and gratitude that you have for them. And in this way, we continue cultivating and generating the feelings of loving kindness, expanding them to the other living beings in the room where you are located. We spread the feeling of loving kindness outwards from our center, so it touches other people. In this way, we send loving kindness to our friends and our family. We send loving kindness to people in our community, even those who you may not know very well. We send loving kindness to others with whom you may not see eye to eye. And make the wish that may everyone in my meditation community be safe, be happy, and be peaceful. May they be healthy in body and mind. May they be able to face their difficulties with good grace and serenity. And may they experience peacefulness and contentment in life. And now imagine these feelings growing and expanding beyond the room, throughout the entire neighborhood, throughout the entire town you live in, and the surrounding suburbs. Imagining the many different people, your fellow townspeople, sending them good wishes to every living being, including all animals, marine life, and birds. Imagine sending your feelings of loving kindness across the entire county, to the very borders of the country where you live, sending these feelings of loving kindness throughout the whole continent, all the continents of the world, and eventually around the entire globe, touching people on every continent with whom we share our planet, and including animals of all species, all living beings. We imagine the feelings of loving kindness growing and expanding up into the atmosphere and throughout the entire universe for a few more moments in silence. Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sanghanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gently coming to the end of your practice. So to return to our subject matter for today, we turn now to how people formally become Buddhists. From the explanation of Buddhist refuges earlier, it will be apparent that rather than merely labeling themselves, Buddhists are distinguished mostly by a unique state of mind in relation to the Triple Gem. For those who find it helpful also to make their declaration public, when becoming a Buddhist, a ceremony exists within most Buddhist traditions to make a declaration of faith. In the Thai tradition, this is known as the Buddha Mamaka ceremony, and it's the opportunity for newcomers to become a Buddhist, or for those who already are Buddhists to consolidate their faith. During the ceremony, the celebrants declare, "I go for refuge to the Blessed One, who long ago has passed away, as well as his teaching and the holy order of the Sangha. May the Sangha graciously recognize me as a follower of the Buddha for the rest of my life. Although Buddhists generally do not put a great deal of emphasis on this ceremony because the label is not as important as how well a person practices, the ceremony is usually conducted in Thailand in advance of young people going abroad to study, or for those formally converting from another religion. Most importantly, Theravadan laypeople who have declared themselves Buddhist will train themselves according to the 5 qualities of an excellent lay disciple listed in the Anguttara Nikaya, namely being endowed with faith, having a good conduct, which means basically upholding the 5 precepts, not being superstitious and believing in luck rather than karma, not seeking a field of merit outside Buddhism, and to give charitable support primarily to Buddhism. In Mahayana tradition, becoming a Buddhist layperson may additionally require taking the Bodhisattva vows, in addition to keeping the 5 precepts. So often in Buddhism, people are hampered by what they see as a contradiction of the proverb, "Be a refuge unto yourself," and "Take refuge in the Triple Gem." Because on the first 2 levels of description from the Triple Gem are outlined, instead of taking refuge in yourself, you're taking refuge in something outside of yourself. A Buddha statue, a pagoda, a Bodhi tree, or a personage who passed away 2,500 years ago. On these levels of description, this would be indeed a contradiction. But if we understand the Triple Gem on a deeper level of experience, suddenly you realize that because the Triple Gem is the deepest part of ourselves, then if this is where we are going to take refuge, something that is no longer our mundane, individualized ego, but something that is the shared core of every person, which is the nature of enlightenment itself, which is so pure and free of defilement that it can't be owned by anyone anymore, then there is no contradiction. In effect, it is true self, but we find, in effect, it's not self at all. It's why taking refuge in oneself and taking refuge in the Triple Gem is not a contradiction. In fact, it's 2 ways of describing the same thing. If we can attain the Triple Gem inside ourselves, then we attain something timeless, which will help us even beyond death. And within our own tradition, it's especially significant because once many people start to attain the Triple Gem inside themselves, there's a knock-on effect for society. As more and more people attain this inner peace, then it becomes easier for others to attain inner peace as well. It's like we're reversing the trend of moral entropy, which I mentioned back in the 2nd session of this series, of the downturn in the quality of life which is mentioned in the Aganya Sutta. Attainment of inner peace is really the key to reversing the slide into chaos. Once inner peace becomes widespread, especially when a certain critical mass of people is reached who can attain that inner peace, then the climate will start to change for the better. Pollution will be less, people will no longer make war to solve problems of the world, and they will look beyond their petty differences to see fellowship in the world. They will no longer perceive themselves as separate from other people. They won't want to fight with others just because they live on the other side of an artificial border. Because there'll be a realization that inside everyone is always the same from person to person. This is really the reason why our school of meditation likes to teach about inner peace and inwardly taking refuge in the Triple Gem as a synonym for this peace. So if you ask what's in it for our organization to teach inner peace to people around the world, we don't do it just to get more disciples or more followers. Why would we want to bother to teach people who are not Buddhist about meditation? Well, the reason is that we hope when people understand more about meditation, one day they too will attain inner peace and understand things for themselves. So it's not our idea to convert people to Dhammakaya or convert people to Buddhism, but simply to give many people in the world the possibility to understand the nature of peace inside, and then world peace will take care of itself. So this is really the big picture of why our community, we have so many outreach projects, instead of complacently sitting around and thinking, oh well, I've attained inner peace now, I can just go and sit under a tree and be happy. On the contrary, we feel that we must give something back to society, because this is the key to also making sure our wider environment can enjoy peace and harmony as well. As for how to work our way towards that refuge, even before attaining that inner refuge, rather than merely praying to the Triple Gem, being a refuge to oneself from the point of view of those who have still not completed the training, otherwise known as Sekha, the Anguttara Nikaya outlines for us the virtues conducive to spiritual growth, or Uttitama, which comes in 4 steps, namely taking refuge in a reliable spiritual exemplar or guide on the inside of us, or a mentor in the outside world, heeding what they have to teach, reflecting on what they have taught us, and finally following their example and practicing what they have taught. This is what would be termed being a refuge to oneself in the interim. In this way, eventually a person will be able to reach the point in their practice where they can be a true refuge to themselves, with the Triple Gem inside as their refuge. 10 sessions is not really enough to do Buddhism full justice, because there's so much more which I haven't had the chance to talk about. Even if you were to study full-time for 2 or 3 months, there would still be plenty more to talk about without repeating myself about how Buddhism can be applied to all manner of aspects of life, and also of the mind. But since we only have limited time, what I hope you've gained from listening to the online programming in this series is at least to whet your appetite to want to study more. As I mentioned in the beginning, even the primary sources in Buddhist scripture passed down to the present day comprise not merely a single book like the Bible, but it's a whole bookcase, because the Buddha was alive for many years, and he preached for as many as 45 years every day and every night. So the teachings which have been preserved are very extensive. The Buddha taught on nearly every subject under the sun to people of all walks of life. He preached to monks, lay people, philosophers, children, royalty, skeptics, and even deities. If you can, you should take the opportunity to read some of the Buddhist scriptures for yourself. And there are a lot of readily available for free on the internet via portals such as Access to Insight or BuddhaNet. In so doing, you will get more than just someone else's opinion about what they thought the Buddha taught. If you start to read it for yourself, I think you will feel much more familiar with the way the Buddha taught, and also the way he used words when he was teaching. If you do attempt to study Buddhist scriptures firsthand, it is made easier if you're able to draw upon supplementary scriptural sources, many of which are available in translation, such as commentaries and reference works. An explanatory map of the Theravada Buddhist scriptures is shown on the slide, and the most accessible translations to start with are the Dhammapada commentary and the Jatakas. For a summary of the Mahayana scriptures, I would recommend looking at Prebish and Keown's 2010 textbook, Introducing Buddhism, and you'll find a list on pages 283 and 285. And that will list the important parts of the Chinese and Tibetan Buddhist canons. For those of you who've had the chance to actually open up these Buddhist scriptures, even in translation, then you may actually find that they are not particularly readable, because the subject matter of the Buddhist scriptures, firstly, is very long, 45 times the length of the Bible. Secondly, it's not normally arranged by subject headings. The teachings of the Buddha are organized by length, so all the long scriptures are put together in the Digha Nikaya, or the medium-length teachings are put together in the Majjhima Nikaya, or the short teachings are put together in the Samyutta Nikaya. Sometimes they are put under the same headings together, sometimes not. So it's hard to find what you're looking for. Also, sometimes they're very repetitive. Often the sort of English into which they're translated is very archaic, and sometimes, I'm sad to say, the translations are not very accurate. So to compare different translations can sometimes be helpful. The problem with the Pali language in which the scriptures were originally recorded is that sometimes one word can have many meanings. So if you translate it to only one of those meanings, then it means that all the other meanings are ignored. So sometimes the best thing is to learn Pali language, and then you can know all the variety of meanings in a particular case. But given that you may not have time to learn a whole new language in order to read the scriptures, you have to treat the translations with relative caution. For example, asking yourself whether if a particular scripture has been translated literally or contextually, it may have a different shade of meaning. Nonetheless, there are easier parts of the scriptures to start with if you're interested to read from them sections, as I mentioned, such as the Dhammapada. And the Dhammapada originally is like a poem, almost, but one thing which is very popular in Thailand and also in Sri Lanka are the illustrative tales based on those Dhammapada verses, what's known as the Dhammapada commentary or Dhammapada Atthakatha, and you can find that on the internet or in the library. Another part which is often interesting to start with is the Jataka stories or the previous birth stories of the Buddha. As I mentioned earlier, especially the final 10 lifetimes of the Buddha exemplify the way in which he pursued perfection, so they are quite inspiring. Well, the Jataka stories have a format like Aesop's fables, in that each has a moral to the story, a message that if a person behaves in a certain way, then there are certain consequences. Some of the stories are about animals, some of the stories are about people, but if you look for the message behind them, then that's quite often an accessible way to start reading from the scriptures. There are some quite good modern retranslations of the Jatakas in English, so if you are tempted to study further for yourself, then that's often a good place to start. In summary, the Dhammapada commentary or the Jatakas. As for lengthier parts of the scriptures, then sometimes you have to hear the explanation from the Venerable Tathagata to understand what's really going on. But don't be put off the scriptures by the fact they're not easy to understand. If you persevere, then you build up a familiarity for the way it's written, and then you can start to pick out the main points for yourself. Nonetheless, without the experience of a teacher who practices, interprets, and sets an example of what is mentioned in the scriptures, it's almost impossible to translate theory into practice. Without such teachers, the Buddhism loses its central core of experience that makes it a living religion. Buddhism without teaching and practice is no more than a dry set of beliefs and dogmas. So this living Buddhism course is not the whole of Buddhism, but what I've done is to pick out key concepts which are the identity of Buddhism, especially things to do with the law of karma. We've only been able to look at some of the more basic and fundamental concepts. But if you want to study further, then you should make the attempt to study for yourself by looking at what's actually written in the Buddhist scriptures. So to change the subject slightly, I'd like to make a few concluding remarks about the challenges facing Buddhism in the West. Wherever Buddhism spreads, it has never intentionally set itself up in competition with other beliefs, customs, and cultures, but has rather incorporated and responded to them. Consequently, in latter years, Buddhism has become many things to many different people in parts of the world, more numerous to mention. Some of those things relate to religion, some to philosophy, and others to lifestyle. Thus, although I would argue that meditation is still a core feature of Buddhism, there are diverse other facets which also need to be acknowledged as Buddhist culture in the present day. In the West, academic research in Buddhist studies is focused mostly on texts in Pali and Sanskrit. Only more lately have Western scholars started to acknowledge new academic disciplines such as sociology and anthropology in relation to Buddhism. Through my own research, personally, I have contributed to connecting the field of Buddhist studies with empirical psychology and identity formation. Despite the apparent progress, a lot of issues remain unresolved in the Western context, such as the relationship between Sangha, society, and the state, especially where Buddhism has associated itself with state power structures in a way that has ended in violence. The relevance of Buddhist monastic institutions has rightly or wrongly been questioned in the West, and with more awareness of how our perspectives are distorted by race, class, and gender, Orientalism in Buddhist studies has given way to a decolonization of this subject. We are coming to grips with questions in the West, such as whether it should be Buddhism for America or American Buddhism. Buddhists in the West are facing issues such as how to break down the societal structures within Western culture that lead to mindlessness, grappling with the possible repercussions on Buddhist thought of dumbing down and commercializing the teachings, while still creating access points to the teachings that are relevant to the culture. Nonetheless, Buddhism remains more complementary than contradictory in its attitude to the other religions and worldviews it has encountered in the West. In this period of transition for Buddhism in the West, suffice it to say that it would be confusing unless we have first-hand experience of practice as an anchor to understanding what Buddhism really entails. So what I've talked about today, by way of summary, builds on all the other things I've talked about over the last 10 sessions, whether it be the subjects of death, rebirth, and karma. It's all linked together with this idea of taking refuge in the Triple Gem, something toward which we must continue to expend effort, since attaining the Triple Gem within ourselves as a refuge and helping to spread this knowledge of ultimate benefit both for ourselves and for others. Within the framework of living Buddhism, it can now be appreciated how central meditation is to Buddhism. For a Buddhist to prepare themselves for death as a path for liberation, to transform meritorious deeds into perfections, as the strongest form of positive karma, contributing to the environment and socio-historical context, and in answering the eternal questions. Before today, let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. For those of you who like to visit the temple in Azusa to bring offerings, please be informed that as pandemic case rates are on the rise again, our temple is still using the offering site in the parking lot next to the main temple building between 10 and 11 a.m. each day. If you have trouble with the passcode on the gate or wish to visit at a different time, please call Jenny on 562-716-2961. You can bring offerings of food each day between 10 and 10:45 a.m. And most recently, every day there is a short ceremony for requesting 5 precepts, offering the midday meal, and receiving a blessing between 10:45 and 11:15 a.m. And on Friday, this ceremony is conducted in English. So for those unable to visit in person, all the other ways of accepting money transfers to DIMC are still available, whether it be mailing checks, bank transfer, Zelle, or Venmo. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merits of all continuing to take the opportunity to support the temple in this way. For the reasons mentioned before, at the temple there are still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim. You can, however, continue to access Dhamma teachings in English through several convenient channels. For aficionados of Zoom meetings, you can access the Inner Peace channel content by joining the Zoom channel ID 970-1192-2337, and the meeting passcode is 072. And as you will see from the program schedule on the slide, content is available for most of the day now, 7 days a week, and brings together all the usual programming from our temple, with the English and Spanish content from the various branches across the US. The times shown on the slide are for the West Coast. For content local to Azusa, you can continue to follow teachings at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation, or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation. For those of you particularly interested in my talks, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, which I set up in my own name. According to the current Peace Point schedule, every Sunday morning you have got me with live material and archived material on alternating Sundays. Venerable Sopon appears every Thursday evening, and the Monday and Friday Peace Silence sessions from Peace Point have been postponed for the interim, owing to the monks having not returned from Thailand yet. Families listening in may be interested in a special show for children known in English, known as Shining Stars, that goes out between 6 to 6:30 p.m. every Monday evening with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and the on-demand programming, you can also download the MindGem app for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dhamma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. It also now has push notifications to keep you up to date with upcoming activities on the Inner Peace channel, such as the full moon meditations. So this session we have looked at the topic of the 3 refuges of Buddhism. For my next live session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning, I will say that I'm not planning to embark on a new series for right now, owing to the uncertainty of my own immigration status. So for posterity, I will be going back to repair some of the faulty recordings of Meditation for Beginners from the early peacetime programs of 2020. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers that you can email your questions about meditation or what you have heard in the lecture to the email address as you can see spelled out on the slide. And I'll do my best to answer these questions on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as the result of today's session, you now realize the different levels of meaning of the Triple Gem and be inspired to take refuge in it on the experiential level of meaning for yourself. So today, this is me, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.